Right, welcome back to another episode of the Dope Stroke Podcast Show. I am here with my guys, my team, Chris Trott of Trotty Golf, and the one and only Bubbles, named after Michael Jackson's chimpanzee. So in case you haven't seen him, make sure you check him out online because you will be recognizing that face and he will be populating your inbox from here on in. But for today's topic, the three of us will be talking all things golf. Clearly, professional golf, clearly some of the stuff that's been happening at the White House. So the topic today we're going to get under the hood of is related to the meetings that have been taking place between Jay Monahan, Tiger Woods, other people from the PGA Tour board, and the one and only, who's the man of the moment right now, it appears, because he's taken up every single sort of news post you can possibly have worldwide, is with Donald Trump. So let's see what the landscape is going to look like over the coming weeks and months. So today, to get into it, I think, Chris, I'm going to hand over to you, or Bubs as the case may be. What is going on in your world today?
Oh, good to see you, boys. As Trotty alluded to last week, it's always a good start to the week when we get to catch up on a Monday. It's Monday afternoon for me and you, Daz, so I know it's Monday morning for Trotty. What is going on in my world? Well, actually, I had a little weekend away this weekend. Last week was my birthday.
Happy birthday. Keep that quiet.
So,
30?
Yep, 30. So
30.
30.
Did you get a new set of teeth for your birthday?
Yeah, 30. 30 plus 13.
13 teeth.
So we went to London for the night. So we did a little bit of shopping, went for a meal, came back, all very nice.
You can only do one night now.
Two, right, half a night.
Ain't got the stamina for two.
Yeah. But at least it was another year around the sun and no grey hairs. So I was happy that I managed to get another year under my belt.
What, no more grey hairs.
Yeah, I count them daily just to make sure there's none in there.
Happy birthday, Christopher. Happy birthday.
Thank you, mate. So yeah, all good. What about you boys? Anything good this weekend?
No, I had a weekend of children's sports. So obviously showing far too much attention to one child and hardly any to the other, which is a constant battle in my house, which is so freaking annoying, but I don't know how you manage that. Anyone fancies writing in, you can help us with that one. And then just the thankful lessons that sport brings to children in life. Last minute goal in the semi-final meant the kids are out of the State Cup, which was fantastic. So appreciate that. If there's any parents from Los Angeles watching for the team that beat us, which is brilliant. And then got home and saw that San Diego FC had their first game in the MLS, which is actually a big deal here, boys. So San Diego FC have now got an MLS team here in San Diego. There are no sports teams in San Diego other than the baseball and the Wave, which is the girls' football. They had an American football team here that moved out of town, like weird. Your teams can leave town quickly. I don't get it. That wouldn't happen in England. But whatever, they've left town, the Chargers, so that went a while ago. So now this soccer team coming to town, everyone's kind of stoked on that. And they actually won. They beat LA Galaxy, which you boys will have heard of, because obviously all the legends for England go and play there. So they beat them at LA Galaxy for their first game. So that was good, I guess. It's hard. Right. Once you've got one team, as a true Englishman, very difficult to have a second team. It's not really what I do. So if I was having a second team, it would be Tranmere Rovers as well. I don't know if it would be San Diego, and I'm not sure if anyone in San Diego could understand why I would support Tranmere Rovers over San Diego, but it's just the way it is. And then after that, I'd probably go for Ness Village Pub team as my third team. And no one in San Diego could understand why you do that either, but it's just the way it is. You know what I mean?
I don't think anybody in Ness would think that either, to be honest.
Do you know what? They played on a slight upslope. If they were going downhill, they weren't a bad team, to be fair.
Well, sticking on Liverpool on football, Liverpool Football Club beating the Premier League champions yesterday 2-0, and obviously after Arsenal's defeat, I mean, I'm calling it now, but I cannot see Liverpool being overtaken now. I don't want to be that fan, but just looking at the stats, they only have to win 7 and draw 1 to still win the league.
I mean, you're putting your neck out there, aren't you, mate?
I am putting my neck out there, but I'm telling, just looking at the stats, and I like the stats. You like the stats, both of you guys.
Yeah, but I think that you could have called that win. I mean, yeah, no one, good odds on that now. I mean, put it this way, mate. I've almost booked my flight back to celebrate. I might come back to go and celebrate in Liverpool with my lad.
Well, I think that would be the right thing to do, and to be quite right, you should do that. But I'm looking at this situation, and Opta, so who obviously do all the stats for everything, they've given Liverpool a 96.7% chance of winning the league. So I'm going to put it in. I'm just going to put it out there. I think they're going to win the league.
I like those odds.
Do you know what it brings you though? A little good pivot point, which you might not have seen coming here. Liverpool owners, they're American, right?
Yeah, Fenway Sports Group.
Yeah, and done a fantastic job.
Excellent.
Man United owners, are they part American? There's Americans
They are,
involved in
yeah,
that.
Glazer family, so they're Americans as well.
Not particularly doing a great job.
No, pony, but great. I'm glad to see them at the bottom of the league, so delighted.
Newcastle, obviously, Middle East owners,
Yeah.
doing a pretty good job.
I would
know
think
that
so.
Villa, American, I think, and I think there might be some Egyptian ownership in there as well, but doing a good job.
Mhm.
And it shows you that all these different owners of different sports, and you have relegation, obviously in the MLS you don't, and then it brings you to the calamity that we're seeing right now, absolutely shocking stuff in the golf world. So let's get on that subject before we run out of things to say about Ness Village Pub Team and Tranmere Rovers. And just get straight on to the fact that what's going on. I mean, it's diabolical, isn't it?
Can I just give, before we dive into this, because it's going to be a good topic, I just give a little honourable mention to Aaron Rye. Played last week, PGA Tour, not the strongest field. It was in Mexico. I can't remember the name of the event. And I'm not going to say definitely, but he might have been the highest ranked player in the field. But he came T4, tied fourth. Now, that's obviously a pretty good finish. He'll be probably a little bit gutty because he had a really good chance. He actually started 6 back of the lead. So he's probably going into that thinking, I need to shoot a pretty good score and then hope the leader doesn't kind of run away with it. And I think, if I'm right, after 6 holes, he was tied for the lead. So he started birdie, 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 par eagle to go 5 under through 6. The leader kind of like dropped a shot and they were all tied. So he was flying at one point, and even like round 12 or 13, he had a share for the lead. And actually pretty unlike Aaron, really. He missed a few greens coming in, which is really his strength. But still T4 finish. I just want to give a mention because someone we know very well, Piers Nandy, good friends of mine, coach him, done an incredible job with him. Like, coach him since he was like knee high. And just a testament to what you can do over a period of 10, 15 years when you're doing the right things day in, day out. Because you look at his trajectory and it has just been a positive one. He has not had a decline really in his performance. So just an honourable mention, someone we need to look out for. He will most likely win again this year and push on.
Can I just say that he's been mentioned as well already this year in my clipped predictions for weekly winners, because he plays Tory so well, he drives it so well. So while we get Lloyd on here, give you a bit of work, Lloyd, rather than sat on your ass. How many par 5s are at that Mexican course? Because he plays par 5s. I think him and Adam Scott are the leading 2 on the tour, according to clip data, for par 5 play.
So whilst Lloyd is getting that, I'll just send you a little story. So we've got a little group message on WhatsApp. A few of the lads are in there. Piers is in there. Andy's in there. So as he got close to the lead, a few little boys in the chat were like, good week for Aaron's got a chance again. And then one of the boys was like, has he got 2 drivers in the bag? And then Piers chirps up with, yeah, he's got 2 drivers. So he's got a driver he's had for years, which is like 20 to 25 yards shorter. And he's got another driver, which is longer. And he's just like, it's just the way he thinks. He does not think like everyone else in the tournament. He will just go to a golf course and be like, right, what do I need this week? And he just felt like the course was quite open. So drive that would go 25 yards further. Didn't really feel like he needed a 3-wood. Can hit that, I think it's an M6 driver. He can hit that off the deck. So I just put it in. And he's got a new hybrid in there. Just a bit of a strange setup, but obviously working.
I think Tommy Fleetwood thinks along those lines, to be fair. There's a few more in there that think that detailed, but yeah, I totally am with you. I think what's unique about Aaron is that he uses older stuff. Like, it takes a lot to change. It's a bit more amateurish in that approach, to be fair, in the sense that like these boys will just get on a new club and then they might leave it in a locker room one week, get on a new club, give it to a buddy, get on a new club. I think he's very like, what he has is what he has, which I love. But I mean, Lloyd's obviously on this morning. He's had his coffee, mind you. It's not that early for Lloyd, is it? 4 par 5s. Vedante Velata is the name of the golf course. But I mean, they're all long ones: 603, 637, 585, 548, and obviously eagled hole number 6, which is 603. So he probably was going in with that long driver, and then Les Bubsy says the driver off the deck. But like Tommy Fleetwood's the same world, Adam Scott's the same world. I mean, all these mini drivers coming out, even Titleist have copied TaylorMade. I mean, you can't. You're a golf company, you make a decent club, and then shock, everyone else gets on it because they all panic about market share. But obviously tailor-made once again. First there, well done, lads.
Go on then, Daz, let's get into it. What's going on? What's this
talking
meeting
first
with
there, like, yeah, exactly. Are we ever going to get?
Adam
Yeah.
Scott? I mean, who was there? What was it? What was said?
Well, basically, I think just to build up the picture, as we all know, there's this framework agreement that started out ages and ages ago, probably 2 years ago now, which was the agreement to say that they're going to try and do an agreement. They've really struggled to actually tie down that agreement during that space of time. And since Donald Trump has become president, there's now been meetings with the PGA Tour, with the Saudis, with Donald Trump. In particular, the PGA Tour guys, Jay Monahan, Tiger Woods, Adam Scott, they've been to the White House. They've had some more conversations with Trump to see if they can actually help secure some sort of a deal. Now, my perception of the situation really comes down to antitrust laws of the DOJ. So just to paint a bit more of a picture on what that really looks like, they basically trying to reduce the fact that there could be a monopoly in the game. So should a deal take place, there could be one massive entity which controls everything globally. And that would be construed as antitrust. And that's a big thing that's happening with the DOJ right now. So obviously you could argue that if Donald Trump gets involved and he wants to see a deal be made, he could sort of influence what happens at the DOJ, maybe even quash it entirely in its entirety, and force through the deal that needs to, or that they are trying to bring to fruition. So that's really caught you up to where it is right now. The details of those conversations are still really yet to be disclosed, but all signs are heading towards the fact that there is something coming. There's something brewing, and it could be relatively imminent. I think the fact that the major championships have started to now create categories for LIV Golf players is probably the starting point of that. I think it'll expand. I think it'll go wider. I think all of those things will just grow in time, and time could be 1, 2, 3 years. But there's no question that there's now appetite from the PGA Tour to try and find a way to make this happen. But guys, there's going to be some tough things to overcome. Like how is it going to be easy for LIV Golf players to suddenly start playing in PGA Tour events when the field sizes are limited? Which players will be left out? Which players might be compensated? Will there be compensation? I don't know. So I'd like to get into the hood of this, boys, and see what you guys think about it. But I think right now, to get you up to speed, these White House meetings seem to be quite crucial. Is Donald Trump going to get involved and really do something? Is he not? What do you guys think?
Should he be?
Well, it's government control, so you could argue no, but then the Saudis are backed by PIF, right? So private investment fund of Saudi Arabia, that's all sovereign cash. So I'm looking at the situation going, I would rather it was just left to the decision makers in golf, but the decision makers in golf can't make a decision. So what next?
So DOJ, give me that one first.
That's the Department of Justice. So it's all to do, it's basically, when they do a lot of things as part of that particular department, but in this scenario, it is to decide or decipher whether there's a monopoly of the game, which is potentially bad for player freedom, could be bad for prize money, could be bad for market dynamics and sponsors.
This is way bigger than golf then.
In that sense, yes. In that sense. If you just isolate it to that.
That meeting obviously happened a week, 2 ago. And then obviously they kind of released statements. It's pretty generic, but the statements are like, discussions were good and positive. And like, I'm just listening to those statements thinking, like, how many times have I heard that come out of a meeting? Like, if you go into a meeting and it's like, oh yeah, it's positive. I'm like, what have you been doing for 2 years? Like, how have you not got so much closer that you can give us something more than this was a positive meeting? I'm just like, so like, to your point, Trotty, does Trump have to get involved? Well, they've had 2 years and they've just messed around and had the odd meeting and given us lines of, oh, this was really positive, we're getting closer, and yet nothing has happened. So, like, to be honest, I don't really care who now comes in these meetings if they can push it forward and get to a resolution.
I do think, though, yes, I hear all of that. But the fact that it's a president of all the stuff that's happening in the world right now, we're going to leave it to the president. Isn't he got bigger fish to fry than a mere game of golf at the end of the day? Now, look, I know we got problems in the industry, or certainly at the tour level, but is that really Donald Trump's decision? It's somebody's decision, but it clearly ain't. It clearly ain't the decision makers in golf.
He's probably going to give himself a tour card, isn't he? Negotiate that in.
Yeah.
I mean, boys, this is a sticky subject here. You know what I mean? This is clearly a massive, massive deal, and it's clearly bigger than what we are seeing, and the players are definitely seeing. It's not about the game, is it? It's about the business of the game and negotiations between the countries and, well, the continents, and how we want to do all this and where he wants to position himself as well as his businesses, as well as the country. I think all this indicates to me is that this is a way, way, way bigger deal than what three Muppets on a podcast could even discuss, to be honest with you. It's a tricky one. I mean, he's so involved with golf. I mean, Florida and his properties and even what he's done over in Europe and Scotland and other parts of Europe, and his golf courses here and the land that some of the courses he's got in California is on. It's smart, and he's a big deal to the golf industry, and he's a big deal to Florida and the PGA Tour. And I think it's been a business that's been close to his heart, like him or hate him, for a long time. And obviously, to Daryl's point, he feels like that they can't get this solved. And I think there's got to be some concern with the Middle East really in on this. And then obviously, let's not overlook the Bryson relationship. I mean, Bryson is phenomenal for golf. Again, it's the same. Love him or hate him, it's phenomenal. And there's one of your largest global assets in the game. Going to go and play in that international series in India, winning it, transcending the game even further in that part of the world, which was already in a fantastic place, having been there with Asian Tour events, and all of a sudden this stud turns up, gets it done. I mean, some of the scenes coming out of that were ridiculous. So I think there's a lot more to it than what we see. And at the end of the day, the president's allowed to have things that he's personally interested in as well. I get it, Daryl. He is extremely busy and probably has much bigger things to worry about. But on the same note, we know he loves golf. I mean, we know he does. So it's only like, hang on, I've got an interest in this beyond what I'm doing day to day. And plus, who knows how busy the guy is? I mean, he's got a lot of people working for him. Maybe this is something he's got a team of people on. I mean, he's got enough people.
Yeah,
I want to ask you, Daryl.
Yeah.
I want to ask your view, because I always feel like when it comes to stuff like this, I think you have a bit more inside knowledge than you let on. I think ever since there was the talk of this agreement, this merger, I kind of get the feeling that some golf fans are under the impression that an announcement's going to happen and the whole world of golf is going to come together under one tour. And I just feel that when something does get announced, it's going to be disappointing for a lot of people. It's not going to be what they kind of think, which is, all these parties are coming together under one tour. Are you kind of on that same impression that it's actually going to be still quite fragmented? It might just be that LIV players get maybe 5 PGA Tour starts. I just have this gut feeling that it's going to come out and everyone's going to go like, oh, is that really what we were waiting for?
Yeah, I think there will be, but I think there will probably be some form of a transition that'll take place as well, because you can't forget that these tours have agreements with venues and with sponsors that are multi-year agreements. So you can't suddenly just start on the 1st of January 2026 and go, okay, this is the new schedule, lads, that's going to work. It's not quite going to be like that. So there will be a slow-moving transition into whatever it will become.
Hold on a minute. Farmers just pulled out. They're finished with San Diego. So arguably it's an amazing, which is why the sport thing I opened up with about San Diego, any sports franchise coming here, mate, the weather's perfect give or take all year. So, if you're an away fan coming here, and obviously they split most of the sports down the middle of the country, so keep your thought in mind. So you have West and East Conference. But again, if you come in here to San Diego, there's a lot to do if you bring your kids. There's a lot to do if you come in to watch a game. The sports arenas are fantastic. So Farmers have San Diego at Torrey Pines, iconic venue, not involved anymore. Genesis go back due to the tragedies in Los Angeles. it goes to San Diego 2 weeks out of 4 or whatever the exact dates were, gets the one bad week of weather, no one attends the event, it's a hard golf course, best players aren't there, mate. And I think that you're looking at that. Farmers are pulling out of a PGA Tour event in San Diego. That, for American PGA Tour business, is a tragedy. Absolutely. So I know I interrupted your thought here, but PGA Tour is in a very, very difficult spot, because if Farmers is pulling out of an event in this part of the world, in this section of the continent, problem, major problem.
I heard a little rumor that it was going to be the Rocket Yard event going forwards.
It should be. That's what it should be. We just got to stoke up the prize fund. No problem. We'll do that tomorrow. Now, on a serious note, though, with the events, I think the schedule will have to change. There will be sponsors that'll drop out. There could be new sponsors that rise. So, there is natural churn when it comes to stuff like that as well, to a degree. But the PGA Tour, European Tour are definitely in a difficult position, and they have.
I'm going to interrupt you again here. And those sponsors, no, those sponsors, mate, Middle Eastern sponsors. Look at the front of Newcastle Football Club. Again, America, the economy wants something connected to that. Why wouldn't it?
My turn now, just to check.
Why the Americans, mate, taking over all the sports franchises in the Premier League? Like, you've got to understand how it all is globalizing for the benefit of individuals.
No, you're absolutely right. And you have to look at how betting laws are changing in the US, and you're going to see more betting sponsors come to the fray as well. And those will be big players in the golf space and the PGA Tour. But what I'm looking at, and maybe it's slightly unique for me, I've seen the minutes of the meeting from Malta, like all the way from day one, before LIV Golf was even really a product at the time. I've seen so much information and so many documents and presentations over this time period. Really, this agreement that needs to take place, yes, there's the schedule, but it's how those entities are actually going to work together. It's not a case of, right, we're going to put a PGA Tour event there, we're going to put a LIV event there. It's not as simple as that. It's how is one team going to engage and connect with another team from another organization that has a commercial interest in the game. So
exactly the same way that Bayern Munich have done it with the NFL.
Yeah, but that's not in place. But that's not in place in golf. That's what I'm trying to say. So how that deal gets struck is not going to be the same as it happens in football or soccer or other sports in the current landscape. It's going to have to be a unique proposition, because what you're not going to want are two sponsors or the same sponsor to go head to head in the same week. Sometimes you might want that to really amplify your message. It depends on the nature of the tournaments, right? But I just don't think that the dynamics of just working out a golf schedule and saying, okay, that's the LIV time of year, this is the PGA time of year, is going to be that effective. It's going to be far deeper than that. It's more entrenched than that. It's the working relationship between the entities. It's about how they share in that revenue model, how that revenue model even exists. How does it get split? Because certain TV audiences will be different. Will the PGA Tour be more amenable to the US broadcasters broadcasting more LIV Golf? Maybe, maybe not. So there's just a lot more fragmentation that's to do with how they work together, rather than just a simplified, oh, hey, this is the schedule, this is how it's going to work. So to go to your point, Bubs, are people going to be disappointed? I think at first they will be, because I think they'll just look at it on the surface. And I think they'll look at it and they'll go, it doesn't look like much has changed. There's a few changes and there'll be a bit of this and a bit of that. But it's the agreement that sits behind the scenes that matters. It's how is this person going to talk to the other person in another business or another sports league, let's call it, and actually make it a beneficial conversation, rather than it being a battle, rather than it being a you versus me. And that's
I tell you what, this is going to turn into you versus me. I didn't want to get involved in this subject, but you're getting me fucking caught into it now. You do me, Eddie.
Go for it.
Listen, America doesn't care about golf in the rest of the world. You can't watch the golf in freaking Delhi because everyone's asleep. So
I'm not talking about the tournaments. I'm talking about the agreement. The tournament, you're right. The tournaments, the PGA Tour. Look, there's a number of Madeira Islands Open. Right, I'm calling that one out, and apologies for that. It's not what that was on the European Tour schedule for so long. Nobody goes there. Nobody watches it.
If you stepped forward off the edge of that driving range, you would be dead.
Yes,
it's the biggest drop off on a golf driving range I've ever seen in the world.
Yeah, agree.
Just a goat lives on the side of that hill.
launch angles are like 1 degree when they're on the launch monitors, just because everyone was trying to feel like they were hitting it high, but they were actually hitting it really low. But that's what I mean. I do think that there's too many tournaments, and I think that the schedule does need to change to make it more engaging for the fan. But the agreement, that's only one small part of the whole agreement, in my opinion. Now, I could be proven wrong, and I don't know every single detail, but my feeling is that there will be initial disappointment, because that's the stuff that matters to the fans won't be fully in place yet. It'll take time for that to come to life.
The fan is the last person in this whole thing.
Sadly.
Didn't, just before you get in there, didn't this happen with Eccleston and the Formula One? And didn't he manage to maneuver himself in to get, and he ended up leaving the whole thing, but isn't that how this Formula One came about or something? Because I'm telling you now, all of this, I think, plays into like the YouTube giants' hands. And obviously Horvat is the man gone down that route right now. But just make a game, give him half the cash or whatever. And, his channel's a giant. He's got Phil on there, DJ and Phil playing the other day. People watch it. People want to see it. I mean, Rick has gone live. He sees it. I just think it's all short term. That's where you're going to get your golf fixed.
Oh yeah, I agree.
How long till the Saudis just get in on that and are like, yeah, it's a bunch of cash. Let's just flip and make that our deal.
So
what do you think,
my feeling is, in 5 years' time, LIV will still exist. PGA Tour will still exist. So if we're agreeing, well, I'm not sure you are, but let's say you do agree with me that those tours will exist, do we have to look at the DP World Tour, or as it's been, the European Tour and the PGA Tour, and how those two tours ran to get a preview to what might happen? So you look at DP World now and PGA Tour, there are co-sanctioned events. Things like the Scottish Open is now part of the PGA Tour schedule. And when the PGA Championship's on, when the US Open is on, there's often not an event on the DP World Tour, or it's a much smaller event. So is that more what we think will happen? That, the two events, the two tours will coincide, but they might have to look at adjusting their schedules a little bit. Basically, what I'm saying is, in a long-winded way, do we have to look at how the European Tour ran alongside the PGA Tour to get an insight as to what might happen?
I want to go with that. I think what you have to look at, if you start thinking about this, there's many ways to look at this. Start thinking about it as a player. Are you really upset with how things are if you're a player? Because think about it. You could have just played in Mexico if you're not the tier 1 PGA Tour player. So you could have got in that event. There would have been a Corn Ferry somewhere. There would have been a Challenge Tour event somewhere. There would have been an Asian Tour event coming up somewhere. There'd be plenty of LPGA stuff to play in somewhere. There'll be tier tours for the LPGA to play somewhere. If you're flipping someone like Lucas Herbert, great player, you're making more money than you'd have made if you'd have stayed on the PGA Tour by doing what you're doing. Now, he's not in the limelight every week, but he's killing it. Richard Bland. I mean, he's got the choice of the Champions Tour now, the European Tour. I don't know where his situation is with that. I'm sure he can play if he wants to. LIV. I mean, again, he's got to be just sat there like, it's a job. It doesn't matter where I'm playing. So, we get caught up, and it doesn't directly answer what you're saying, but in all the Rory stuff and the Charlie Hoffman stuff, but there's millions of places you can play if you don't show an allegiance to one tour.
Well, thinking about that then, Trotty, so in years gone by, if you were a European Tour player and you ended up getting an invite to play into PGA Tour events, there was never any issues with that happening. There was never any issues that you didn't have to make a request for a release. But obviously, LIV Golf comes around, and then that becomes more mainstream amongst the players. Do you agree or disagree with what the European Tour have done?
In terms of what? Not allowing LIV boys to play?
Well, requesting an invite to even play in a LIV event, but it's still okay to play in a PGA Tour event.
If I'm a player, I think about me. Where can I play for the most money? It's a short-term mentality, and that's what got you to do this for a job. If you have a long-term mentality to go and play pro golf, any pro sport, you've got to think about it here and now, and you're an entrepreneur at the end of the day. So I think, is it right? No, no tour should say where you can and cannot play. If I'm a musician and I get a gig on a Tuesday night, the gig on the Tuesday night can't tell me if I can play on the Thursday night. Yeah, you do what you want. You're an independent contractor.
The DP
Unless
World
you've got
Tour,
I guess it's a contract, isn't it, that says you can't.
what the DP World Tour, what they've done is basically it's the equivalent of Trotty's missus saying to Trotty, "Oh, can I go out for a drink with my mate Dave, who's 5'3", overweight and unemployed?" And Trotty goes, "Yeah, of course you can." And then next week she goes, "Oh, can I go out for a drink with my mate Tom, who's 6'4", built like a brick?" And he goes, "No, you can't go for a drink with him." That's what
That's the equivalent is.
it's just what they've done. They've just picked and choose who they were basically scared of.
Well, the thing
She's
that
an
bothers
independent
me,
contractor. She can do what she wants.
the thing that kind of like intrigues me a lot, and this is a conversation I had with sort of one of the top execs at the time. We were talking about two different players. One was a high profile player. The other one was like a journeyman type player on the tour, and how each one of them had a different set of circumstances with the tour. Therefore, they would bend the rules differently for one player versus the other, depending on what the tour could get, which I disagreed with because all the players sign up to the same handbook, which then begs the question of, well, when you get a tour card, you are given the sort of the agreement, the handbook, which you are authorized to go, yeah, I agree with everything in the handbook and I'll play on the tour. If you don't agree with everything in the handbook, you can't play on the tour. So they can, in theory, put all the rules that they want to put in there to stop you from playing in these other events, but you have no choice but to comply. That would be a frustration from my side. And then to support that even further, they changed the rule in the handbook about requests, saying that you still have to make a request to play in an Asian Tour event or a LIV event, even if you are not eligible to play in that week's European Tour event. That to me is bullshit. Like, if you can't even get into your home tour event, let's call it a home tour, but you have an opportunity to go somewhere else, surely you go somewhere else. To your point, Trotty, about the musician, you go, there's a gig somewhere and you got an opportunity to play.
Yeah.
I don't think that you should be asking for permission.
I think what the emergence of LIV Golf has done is it's shone a light on the other tours and shown that they were just pretty fragile, really, in that, like a Rory McIlroy could not play any events. He could play 3 events. He could pick and choose. I think it's definitely shone a light on, actually, they've not been run that well. And obviously, when you look at LIV Golf now, very different model. You sign up, you play all the events. There's no picking and choosing. And I do think the PGA Tour have been forced to make changes, which I do think is a good thing. And I think long term it will end up being pretty good. But I just struggle to see how we're going to resolve this. I've said it already, and I make no apology for saying it again. I think we are, as golf fans, going to be massively disappointed when this all comes out.
Well, I also think the thing is we don't understand some of the stuff that's going on behind the business side. The other thing is we don't understand Rory's situation either. Like, I just want to speak a little bit. I have no clue, by the way, but he doesn't need to do any of this. The guy's going out. He's speaking on behalf of players, the tour, himself. It's like, don't think people realise if he didn't want to play anymore, he could easily go and do something else. You know what I mean? And I think that's a delicate thing. He loves golf, but he's become the spokesperson. I don't know if he really, at one point he wanted it as he was on the PGA Tour, being on that board and stuff, but it just, at what point do you sit there and go, I don't need this hassle? You know what I mean?
Well, I think that sometimes we're all a little, and I think the three of us can be included in this from time to time. We're all a little, even though we're not privy to every single conversation that's happening, we're all a little too close. Like, if I think about it through the lens of the fan, what does this need to look like for the fan? So, and maybe that's my next question, really. So, aim this at you, Bubs, initially. You're a golf fan, you enjoy watching professional golf. How do you want to see this unfold for your benefit as a fan? Should they do it? Should they make an agreement?
I look, as golf fans, you always have the player that you're interested in. Maybe it's someone you've known from your club, or maybe it's someone you followed their story. So a good example of that would be for me, Aaron Rai. I was going to watch when he's in there. But if we put that aside, I think you've got probably 20 to 30 players around the world who will pull in 95% of the fans. Right? If you give me a tournament with 30 of the best players in the world, I'm happy. I don't need a field of 140, 150. I just don't. I'll use Formula One. I mean, I don't know how many drivers you got on the on the grid? Is it 20 something?
20.
You don't need any more than that. Now, I think the fields should be that strong, but what I'm trying to get at is those 30 players have got to be in the majority of the events that are on TV. I think what the PGA Tour has maybe, where they've struggled in the past, is they might have, let's call it 45 events in a year. And if you're someone like Scotty Scheffler, you can win the FedEx by playing 10 or 12 events. So where is the incentive for Scotty Scheffler to play in any of the other 15, 20 events? He's just not going to do it. And I think that's where they've made a bit of a rod for their own back, is they've created so much money and they've top weighted so many events that these best players are now picking, 10, 12 events. And I think the longer we go down this road, the PGA Tour is basically creating two types of events. The signature events where the best players play, and then the other events. And I just don't see why those other events don't just get dropped onto the Corn Ferry Tour. And the PGA Tour can be 15 events with the majors, with the LIV players, and then we can watch the other events which are demoted. I just generally don't think we need 45 events.
Yeah. But it's money. I mean, if you answer Daryl's question, which you have, it's the best of the best. It's the Premier League, isn't it? You make the Premier League, and I mean, I could stand here and tell you the events I would want in it straight away. I would make it global just because I'm a big fan, having lived in all different parts of the world, of golf going to all different parts of the world. They'd be big prize funds, so the players were happy. You'd be contracted that you have to play them. I'd take one, I'm going to do it now, one down to Oz for sure. But I would, the courses, some of the golf courses down there are phenomenal. Can't afford it. So I'd have to get rid of like this whole, I don't know how you figure out how you can pay if you're at Royal Melbourne, if they want the golf tournament, how they can get it every year. But I mean, that's on. The Dubai Desert Classic is on. Abu Dhabi's probably on just because now that's becoming iconic. The Wentworth PGA Match Play comes back, iconic. The Open stays, Augusta stays, obviously PGA just about stays, and the US Open stays. And then you've got Pebble Beach, you've got Riv, iconic. And you could handpick your PGA Tour events from there. Wells Fargo, the one over there in Charlotte, that's got to be in there. It's an iconic event. Players love it. And you just put 12, 15 events, and that's the Premier League. And after that, it is what it is.
Yeah.
The challenge is, though, if you look at a European Tour season, there's over 800 different golfers that'll compete in a tour event that year. So there's a lot of professional golfers. And professional golfers, in order to become the best of the best, you still need to have an income stream that allows you to do all the things that you need to do to become the best of the best. So by the time you get there, what I wouldn't want to do is see something that is detrimental to creating depth in the game. And that's where it would be quite interesting. But I think to your point a little bit, Bose, with the designated events, I can see that happening a little bit in the European Tour. Those two sets of tournaments then essentially merge in with each other, which then creates that World Tour. Then the tours below that, rather than maybe dropping down to Corn Ferry or the Challenge Tour in Europe, maybe they then start to become another tour in its entirety, that it becomes the feeder to the World Tour. But I actually think, and it's not quite going to fit as neatly, but your point, which I agree with, getting the best players to play with each other more frequently, I think it could happen over a more concentrated period of time, so less events. But if you think about, say, how soccer works, so in Premier League, you finish in the top four of the Premier League. The following season, you go and play in the Champions League. Then if you finish fifth, you go and play in the Europa League, right? So I don't see why you couldn't adopt a similarity to that in golf. So if you finish in the top 30 in the FedEx, well, that means that you've earned the right to play in all 12 of those events the following year, which you are now contracted to play, because that's where you finished for the year. And you do that to make sure that those events are always concentrated to play the best, not always about the prize money. Granted, the prize money will be bigger because the sponsors will be involved. There's more interest in the event, so there's more eyeballs, so more sponsorship money will come in. But I do think that you can still have a mechanism which says, I finished in X spot. I think that we can, that enables us to be able to play those 10, 12, 15 events the following year. And that's my schedule. At least it becomes predictable.
It's been done before. It's the Premier League. basically. And it's a relegation and a promotion battle, and it's out there. We're not reinventing the wheel. Problem is, too much money involved, too much politics involved. It's freaking tricky, isn't it? But I think it's been done before. And now you got TGL in the mix, which is a whole nother league. It's like, wow.
Yeah. The other thing as well, which we haven't really spoken about, is you look at, back in the day, Jack Nicklaus, those events he won. Arnold Palmer, those events he won. Tiger Woods, those events that he won. He can pretty much hand on heart look back, or those players can look back on their careers and go, I won X number of events and I beat the best of the best. Nobody can say that these days. Like, whoever wins the Players this year, is there a caveat against that? Bryce wasn't playing. DJ wasn't playing. Brooks wasn't playing. It's like, I just think as a sport, it's just going down a route where, I don't know, like, look, there'll be some players out there who are just happy to play, happy to win. But there's people like Rory, people like Scotty, who genuinely want to look back and say, I beat the best. And they can't do that at the moment. And that's not good for the sport.
Yeah, the game's in a tough spot. I think as much as we're trying to solve it, we haven't solved it. And I think everyone's just getting numb to it. And it's just a case of the winners from this are YouTube. If I look at what my kids are tuning into, it's Bryson break 50, and they're interested in that, and that's bringing them into the game. And that's obviously important. I think if I'm a tour player, I can find places to play. Aaron Wright, at the end of the day, is a great example who we talked about at the top of the show. He's having a fantastic career, making a lot of money, and he's managing to stay slightly under the radar, which, maybe he likes that, maybe he doesn't like that. But talk about, he's putting food on the table for whoever his family are, and he's doing fantastic. And it's a short career at the end of the day. And if you again look at Blandy, who I know, amazing, great guy, giving his life to the game. Now he's getting the benefit from all of that. So it's great stuff. It's something that we can't solve. I think it would take more than one of our contemplating celebratory beers to get this fixed. We'd probably have to buy a brewery and brew a few thousand batches of beer to get there, and that's just with our limited skills and resources. So God knows. I think rest assured, at the end of the day, we do have to have faith that there's some intelligent people working on this. There really is. Much like we have intelligent people working on the future of the Dope Stroke podcast, chaps. And we have some guests coming. We have some stuff lined up that we're waiting for the go ahead from those companies to put out here. Obviously, one of which I'm fashionably wearing today, this top. I know got a bit of a piss take early on before we got on camera, but you lads are actually quite jealous of this little number I've got on.
It's the double trifold.
Exactly.
That's what it's all about.
Exactly. And, the fact that one of them's upside down and one of them's the right way up actually does mean something. I'm going to say I'm not allowed to say what it is, but the truth is I can't remember what it means when one's the right way up and one's the right way up. One's skateboarding and one's something else. That's all I know, and it is what it is. And then we've got another guest coming as well. If you're liking the show, we've got a friend of mine and a fantastic golf coach, Phil Kenyon, will be joining us. No doubt there'll be plenty to talk about with Phil. He, if you don't know him, he's one of the best coaches in the putting world. He's dedicated his life to putting. Absolute blade of a putter himself, and works with some of the best golfers out on the PGA Tour and the LIV Tour. So he actually doesn't discriminate between either tour and the European Tour, which obviously I know people like to call it DP World, but screw that, it'll always be the European Tour. One thing I just want to leave you with, let's get the Wentworth World Match Play back. Can someone get on that, please? We get Sevi back somehow. That'd be great.
Yeah, it's good. It's nice, to be fair, when you walk into the Wentworth estate and you see all of the old clubs from everyone, there's lots of Sevi stuff in there as well. So, yeah, if we could bring Sevi back, I think that'd be immense. But we do have some great guests coming onto the show. We are looking to make sure we can dial them all in the appropriate stages. So we'll keep you abreast as to what's coming up in the future. But right now, I think, is that all we want to close on today, guys? Is there anything else we want to wrap up? No, we're all good?
I will just say, if anybody has got a question that they want to ask Phil Kenyon, put it to us and we can put it to him.
Okay. Well, you can obviously fire these questions through to Trotty, Bubs, or myself. Of course, we do have hello@dopestroke.com, which you can also send through your questions or queries or anything that you want us to talk about. Please drop us a note. We'll be more than happy to discuss that, discard a few, and possibly consider others. Other than that, until next week, we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks and take care.